Hi, in this video we'll be talking about finding the number of inversions in an array. So the problem statement is just as simple as it is. Given an array, find the number of inversions in the array. Okay. So now what is an inversion in an array? So let's say we are given this array 3, 1, 5, 2, 6, 3. Okay. Now we need to understand what inversion mean. Okay. So a pair of element is called to be a inverted pair. Okay, a pair I comma j. So I comma j are the indexes. Okay, so this is I and j. Okay, the pair I comma j is called inverted if a of I is greater than a of j and I is less than j. Okay, if for any pair these two hold true, that pair is called an inverted pair. Okay, and the number of inversions in an array is the total number of pairs that are inverted. Okay, as simple as that. So you're basically having an array, find the number of pairs in the array which are inverted, which follow this condition. So that's the whole problem statement. So there is a very obvious order n square solution, that loop over every pair of elements in the array and just check whether this condition holds, and you can get the number of inversions in order n square. Like just loop over for every pair, check. This is the order one check. So you can find the number of inversions in order n square. Okay. So how do we do this better than order n square? That's the whole point of the problem. So we would be resorting to something called modified merge sort to find the number of inversion. First of all, we need to understand what are we doing in this. So let's say there are two elements which are causing inversion, something like this. Okay, there are two elements over here, and this is this place where we are splitting the array into two parts. Okay, let's say there are two numbers such that they are over here and they would be present in this as well. Okay, so when we split it like this, if the two numbers are like this, these are the two inverted pairs, like this is greater than this, even though this is before this, like the smaller number should be greater, the smaller index number should be greater than this. That's the condition, right? That's the condition. So if this is greater than this, then this will also come somewhere over here. Okay, similarly, if we talk about something like a pair which has one of its element in this side, like one of its element in this side and another one in this one as well. So if both of them are over here, like if both of them are over here, like 1 and 2 both are there over here, it will appear somewhere over here, right, as well. Now let's consider the last case, that is, let's say the first element is over here and the second element is over here, right? So they will get split off in two different parts. So the idea that we use is that when we merge the solutions of the two subparts, we will also count the number of inversions that are being caused in that division. So every pair of inversion, like every inverted pair, will get separated in one of the division for sure, because we know that when we have a merge sort, we have the array, we break it off into like exactly two parts, right? And then we break it off another into two parts unless we reach only one element array, and then we combine them back, right? This is how we do merge sort. So any pair, even though they are in the same part over here, in this part they will get separated by this division and they will land up over here, right? So what we can do is that we can merge the solutions of these two part over here and count the number of inversion that are caused across this division. Okay, so at every sub solution space that we are visiting, we would try to count the number of inversion pair that are being split off by this division that we are creating at that state. Okay, so in this original array, if we divide it in the middle part, we'll try to count the number of elements that were inverted, and one of them were on this side and another one was on this side. Okay, something like this. So if we count the number of inversion at all steps of this recursion tree, like if this is like a whole recursion tree, if we count the number of inversions that happen, like between the split there is an inversion across it and they get separated in this part. If we can count the total number of inversions in this whole tree, What I claim is that we will get the actual number of inversion in the whole array. Now why is that? Because every inversion will get split off into two parts by exactly one division, and after they get split off, they are never like, this element will not form an inversion with this. So every pair of inversion, like every inverted pair, will be counted once only by whichever subarray it first gets split off right by. So if we count in every subspace what is the number of inversion that are getting separated by this split, we can find the number of inversion. Now when we come from this to this, the array is initially unsorted, right? So when we are unsorted, it's difficult to find the number of inversion. So once we go into this sub solution and come back, both the parts, like this gets sorted and this gets sorted as well. So there will be two parts over here, one will be over here and one will be over here. Now we will try to find out how do we merge these two solutions together so that we can also maintain the number of inversions that are being like formed and will be corrected through this split, right? Like number of inversions that are through this split, that will also count while we are merging the array. So this is what we will be doing. Let's look at how are we even merging and how do we count this part, that through this split how many pairs of inversion are there across this. Okay, so this is the merge sort algorithm that we discussed. Okay, so remember that this problem, this two sub problem A and B, came from a bigger problem over here, right? We split it off and it got into A and B, right? Now when we merge them back, we get this original problem but in a sorted fashion. Like the solution for that is a sorted array, right? This is what we were doing. Now we know that we split it in the middle, so all these elements in B are after the elements in A, right? This is for sure true, that all the elements in B will be after the elements in A in the original array. Okay, once they get sorted together and mixed together, we don't know where each of them will lie, but initially since we split it in equal parts first and then combine them from bottom to up, we know that when we are splitting them up, we know that these all elements lie before all these elements in the original array. Okay, so if there is some element over here 2 and some element over here say 3, that means these would cause inversion pair. Okay, these are guaranteed to cause an inversion pair because we know that this part lies before in the array, and so that I is less than j but a of I is greater than j, so this will cause an inversion. Okay, now we run the standard code over here for merge sort. This code we have already discussed in merge sort, but there is one change over here, that we keep an answer that is like the number of inversion, and we just add one line in this over here, somewhere over here, that is answer plus equals to a dot size minus I. Now what are we doing over here? How is this just adding this one line is maintaining the whole inversion count? So let's quickly remove these pointers and let's forget about these two value. Okay, let's say your pointer is over here and this pointer is over here. Okay, and you are considering this value and this value. Okay, and since we have computed 3 values till now, we know that this would have moved to the 4th element, and there you will place the next whichever element you decide on to place. Okay, so now which element over here goes to this will be decided by the whichever is smaller, right? So now let's say B, so this condition will hit only when A of I is bigger than B of j, right? B of j is smaller. So what happens when B of j is smaller? So we can for sure say that B of j will go to this. Now all these elements will come after this, right? Like in the sorted array, these elements will come after this. So in the sorted array, this comes before all these elements, but in the original array, this is after all these elements, right? So since this comes before, this value must be smaller than all these, but the position is after these. So all these elements will pair up with this particular element and will give us an inversion pair. Okay, so we just add the count of A dot size, that is all number of elements, minus I. So I is equal to 2 means there are 2 elements processed. So we know that these 3 elements will be giving a pair of inversion with this particular element. Okay, so this is the whole idea. When you are merging it up, if you place B over here, count the number of elements left in A, and those are all greater than this element, and you know that if it's greater and it's before this particular element in the original array, it counts as inversion. So, and this inversion is across this split, right? So if we count this inversion across all the splits, we get this answer. So what we can do is that we can keep this answer like a global variable and just increment it across the whole recursion. So just keep the whole merge part routine same, just add this line and it will count the whole array, a whole number of inversions. Now, one particular change needs to be done in this code to handle any general case, okay, any general case. So we still have one particular case not handled in this code. Can you identify what that is? Like, all these are correct. You do not need to think about that. Like in terms of like there is no syntactic mistake in this. There is one case that is not being handled right now in the code. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at what needs to be changed. Just this equal to over here. Okay, this needs to be a of I less than equal to b of j. Why? So let's say you are at this element and there is this 3, there is this 3. Had there not been this equal to, you would have put this 3 over here. So you would have taken this 3 from this to this, okay, and then you would have incremented the answer for all these elements, right? But 3 and 3 don't form a pair of inversion, because we know the definition of pair of inversion is that you need to be having a of I greater than a of j, but they are equal. So you don't find a 3 of 3 as inversion of pair. So if you make it equals to, when they are equal elements, you prioritize the elements of A, so they don't get added to the inversion pairs in that way. Okay, so that's just one thing need to be careful about. Also, in general, you should also code merge sort with equal to. Reason being that this is something called a stable sort. Okay, so there is two kind of sorting algorithms. There is something called normal and there is something called a stable sorting. Stable sort. So what that means is that if we are sorting the elements by value, right, a of I, a of j, okay, so if the elements are like of different value, then obviously the smaller one comes first. Okay, what stable sort ensures is that if a of I is equal to a of j, whatever the original order of element were present, or whatever order in which they were present, the final order would be the same. Okay, so if a of I is equal to a of j and I is less than j in initial ordering, so this element will remain before this element even after sorting. Okay, so this is what is meant by stable sorting. And if you use equal to over here, the merge sort works like a stable sort. Okay, and to be correct for inversion count, this needs to be equal to. Okay, so that's there. So the whole complexity will remain same as n log n for merge sort, because we are just adding one line over here and that's like order 1 change. So everything remains same, the complexity and stuff remains the same. So why do we care about inversion? Like, inversion is just like a number, right? You might be needing to find out the inversion number, but is there any relevance to that? So let's try to solve one problem, that you need to find the parity of number of moves needed by any swap based sorting algorithm. So there are a lot of algorithms, right? Insertion sort, selection sort, bubble sort, right? So if you implement any sorting algorithm using some swaps, okay, you need to find the number of swap operation needed by that. Okay, let's need to do that. And let's say I give you something like this, like you given an array, you need to find the number of swaps needed using a bubble sort. So in bubble sort, you swap pairwise neighboring elements. So how many swaps will be needed for that? Okay. So if we try to solve this problem, so if you run a bubble sort, we know that bubble sort takes order n square, right? So there is one way to just simulate bubble sort and count the number of swaps, but that would take order n square. We want to find the parity. So this is like just finding whether there are even number of swaps or odd number of swaps, right? Odd or even. So can we do that better than n square? And it turns out yes, we can. We can find just the parity better than order n square. So we would be using inversion for that. How? So let's look at inversion as an invariant, where let me give you a lemma that every non-equal element swap in the array changes the inversion by an odd number. Okay, so every non-equal element in a element swap in an array changes the inversion of an array by an odd number. So the parity of the inversion flips. Okay, so what this means is that whenever you have an array and you take two elements and then swap them, okay, what happens is that the parity of inversion, so there is an inversion value, right? Like you can count the inversion initially in n log n, right? So the parity of this will change from zero, either if it was odd it will change to even, if it was even it will change to odd. This is what happens. So this is a lemma and this is true. Why? So think about this, that there is an array, okay, and you are talking about two elements over here, right? So obviously for elements over here and here, things don't change a lot, right? Because if they two get swapped, like for them there is no change in inversion, right? Like even if they both were below this already, so there will be no new inversion or decrease in inversion that will be caused. Now if these two were there, if these two were non-equal over here, there's a word non-equal, then if this was smaller than this, then it will introduce one inversion. So this will introduce, so swapping this will introduce one inversion. If it was something like this 3 2, then it would decrease the inversion by 1. So the inversion will flip. Now there are some elements in between as well, right? So let's say suppose there was this 1 over here. So initially it was forming inversion with 2 but not with 3. But after you swap, it will still form an inversion with 3 but not with 2. So it's okay. So let's say this element is x, this element is y, okay, and on a number line something like this happens, like x and y lies over here, okay. So there are three partitions over here. If a element is over here, if the middle element is over here, it already forms an inversion with x, right? Because x lies before this. So this is the element that you are talking about. This, if this lies over here, so it already forms an inversion with x, and even if we swap, it will also form the inversion with 5. So there is no change, okay. If this element lies over here, okay, lies over this part, so then what happens is that it has a no inversion with either x or y, right? Because this would be the case where you have 2 3 4, right? The middle element is 3, but then if you swap these values 4 3 2, it will be introducing two new inversion, right? So it will introduce two new inversion. And if there are some element in this range, if these elements are in this range, swapping these two values will again lead to no change, because sorry, yeah, there would not be any change because already both of them were smaller than it. So it was forming an inversion with this element, and even after swapping it will form an inversion with this element, so there is no change. So only in this case the inversion increases by 1, right? The inversion increases by 2, I mean to say, sorry, for the middle element it increases by 2, and since we are swapping non-equal elements, the parity of inversion flips. So if the inversion changes by 2, for each of the element in between it can only change by either 2 or 0. So we have no change in inversion that is there. So in this sense we can say that the parity only flips because there is this only one odd change between the elements and everything else is even. So the parity flips. And initially we have some, let's suppose we calculate the initial parity of the thing, and that's p, and finally once you get the elements sorted, so any sorting algorithm sorts it finally, right? So that will get to 0, right? So in this process, if this is odd, you will need odd number of swaps because every swap flips its parity and you need to get to 0. So if it's odd, you need odd number of swaps to get to 0. If it's even, you need even number of swaps to 0, right? So this can be one application of inversion that can be used to prove like you need the parity of the swaps needed in any kind of algorithm. And there can be similar kind of ideas as well. Also in a lot of problems you are asked properties, or you need to calculate something related to inversion, so knowing about inversion and how to count them is really helpful. So you can now count the number of inversion of any array in n log n time, right? So that's all for this video. Thank you.